Good evening, Tuesday evening. Better look in the camera, hadn't I? Not over at my phone. Welcome along. It's good to have you all join us, whether you join us live or whether you join us later on. We're going to talk about things to do with ministry with children and young people. Going to explore a bit more on ethnography today, if I can remember. I was reading my book today and I left it at work in the office. I did skim back over what we were going to talk about today, so hopefully some of it's stuck in here, but some of it hasn't. So we'll see how we go. So welcome along. As always, we want to pay our acknowledgements to the Yagara and the Turrbal people, the elders past, present, emerging, for they have cared for this land which God created. We pray that we will care for this land in just the same way, and that we will help to bring reconciliation between them and God, as we say that all people will be reconciled with God. Well, last week nobody got the chocolate quote. Nobody got the quote. Decided maybe Fozzie can do. I can do the quotes. Okay, Fozzie can do the quote. So do you remember what the quote was from last week? A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fifer beans and Chianti. Nobody knew what that was. Kylie thought that it might be the Princess Bride, but it wasn't. It was from The Silence of the Lambs. Should be over in the... We've got a copy of it somewhere. Maybe we don't. No. Okay. We don't, so I can't show it to you. But Silence of the Lambs was the movie last week. So if you'd thought that, make sure you put it in the comments, because there's prizes. Prizes. So, quote for this week. Are you ready? Have you got a quote in mind? I've got a quote in mind. Okay. Are you ready? Are you listening? So, remember, when you hear the quote, if you know where it comes from, put it in the comment box and you can win a prize. So, Fozzie Bear, what is our quote for the week? Houston, we have a problem. Really? What movie does that come from? Houston, we have a problem. Yeah, okay. So, if you can remember what... Houston, we have a problem. Thank you, Fozzie. If you can remember what movie that... Houston, we have a problem. Thank you, Fozzie. If you can remember what movie that quote comes from, then pop it in the comment box. Hey, Rod! That's not the movie, but hey, Rod! So if you know what movie that comes from... Got it. Excellent, Kylie. Well, you'll get the lovely prize for this week. Still owe Rod a prize. I haven't forgotten. Don't worry. Excellent. Oh, bye, everybody. Bye, Grover. If you've got any more comments, pop them in and Grover can chat about them. So we've been talking about culture and exploring culture, and particularly youth culture, by looking at a book about critiquing youth ministry, youth culture, by Pamela Irwin. I think the name has finally stuck in my brain, even though I didn't remember to bring it home. So you'll have to trust me that I'm correct. You can't prove that I'm not. Yes. So we've been looking at youth culture in that sense of we've explored what culture is, and that culture we can look at. Was War of the Worlds musical? Was War of the Worlds musical? I don't might come from the War of the Worlds musical. Houston, we have a problem. Oh. The War of the Worlds. Yeah, I don't know. I know Orson Welles' broadcast of War in the Worlds was based around the Boston River. Is it Boston River? River up that way. Hudson River. I used to have I might still have a cassette tape of famous, not necessarily just speeches, but things that were broadcast in the 20th century. And one of them was the Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcast, where he talked about the aliens coming down, and some people actually thought it was real and got really worried that aliens were coming down on the Hudson River. There you go. It's a fascinating piece of useless trivia. Come along on Tuesday evenings, we'll get useless trivia. So we've looked at culture, and culture can be viewed in different ways. We started to look last time about ethnography, which is the study of culture and trying to understand culture. Pamela Irwin, pretty sure that's her name, talks about two ways of the ethnographer looks at culture. And it's like any and etty or something like those two. The first one is that looks from within the culture. And I guess part of that challenge of when we look at any culture, we come with our cultural baggage. So that sense of when we look at young people, we go, oh, they're not like we were when I was that age. Goodness me. When I was a young person, I used to, do this and that. Here's Rich is going to get sidetracked today. This is how we cover the fact that I don't have a book. And I was interested. I was walking up to, I don't know why I'm doing walking signs. I was walking up to RI today, and this older lady on one of those motorised, they're not scooters, but, the little, well, they're like a razor scooter type thing. Not the little sit-down scooter, but you hold on and it's got the little sort of skateboardy and scooter type thing. And she's an older lady on a motorbike, one of those, helmet on, and she comes across the road and up onto the footpath, and that sense of, well, I really had to get off the footpath so she could go by me. And I thought, if that was a young person, there'd be all this outcry about, oh, goodness, the young people, they're scooting past on their motorised scooters. But she was an old person, and I wouldn't go, one of these old people. When I'm an old person, I won't push people off the path on my scooter. That's how we got there. So we look at youth culture, we go, oh, it's so different to when I was there. Even if you, like in that sense, if you're talking about high school culture, and even if your first year uni this year, you might look back at high school culture and go, oh, it was so different to when I was there. Because culture can change so rapidly. So firstly, as we try to understand the culture of young people, we need to understand that we come from certain cultural biases. We need to understand our own culture and the way that that has formed us so that we can explore and study the culture that we're looking at. So the first way we explore culture is from within. We look within where we are. We understand where we are. The other way is we look from without. And so we look into a culture and explore, well, what is it that that culture has? And what is it that makes that culture defined? So we need to understand our own culture, and then we need to explore the other culture. And so they have this lovely diagram that you can see in the book that's on my desk at Tarragindi. That starts with, your first step is, well, what do I know? What do I understand? What do I understand of my culture? What do I understand about any culture? What is it, my building blocks? What is my baggage that I bring? We've talked about suitcase words, haven't we? Yes. So when I talk about culture, what is my suitcase words? What do I understand by culture? What do I understand is important. From there, you do some research about the other culture, and usually it's around a defined element of that culture. So the example that Pamela uses in her book is around tattoos. So you first ask, well, what's my view on tattoos? What do I understand? Come from a generation where tattoos were fairly rare. It was sort of the radicals or the people sort of pushing the boundaries that might have a tattoo. Regular people, you wouldn't have tattoos. So that's some of the baggage I bring, pretty sure we might have talked about in youth group, quotes about, you don't tattoo, you don't change your body. Body's the temple, so you wouldn't use tattoos. So this is some of the baggage that my culture brings to the table when we talk about. So we've got to understand where I'm coming from on the issue. And that that's that sense of often when we're talking culture, we don't go, hey, let's understand youth culture. We go, well, we might go, how do youth deal with movies? How do youth deal with music? How do youth deal with tattoos? All these things. So firstly, define where we're coming from, what we understand. We'll then do some research. And we do some research on the broad spectrum. So we get out books, we look online, we dig, what is the culture about, in this case, tattoos? What's the culture out there? And we might explore, we might see celebrities with tattoos, we might see all sorts of things. And then from there, we've started to understand the broader picture. And then we look at what is the local culture. What's the local outworking of this culture? So if this is the broad spectrum of what young people believe about tattooing, what do the young people I'm dealing with view about tattooing? How is it important to them? How is it not important to them? And from there, we then go, well, what do I now know about this? What can I sort of solidify? What do I still need to learn? So it's just sort of this cycle. And it's a cycle because you continue to ask questions and to dig. So we might get some stuff about tattoos, but we might need to dig deeper. And in that sense of tattoos are an interesting place to start because they have become sort of so embedded in our culture. Right? Whereas my generation, be rare to have a tattoo, it's now moving more to, 50-50 or even more people have tattoos than don't. Interestingly, one of the guys on MasterChef, again, I'm owning the reality TV that Kylie and I enjoy watching. But on MasterChef, there's one of the cooks who is a tattoo artist, and he has tattoos all up his arm. And he used to be in the business world. And when he decided I'm going to become a tattooist, he tattooed his hands as a sign that he could never go back to that business world. Possibly changed now. He could probably get away with it maybe in the business world. Maybe there's still a bit of that stringentness. But yeah, that was his symbol. You go, why do you have these tattoos? Well, they're about, I'm moving to a new space. And so I'm burning my bridges. I can no longer go back to that life and that possibly that rut that I was in. I'm now moving forward. So as we explore the local, we get into those questions of, well, what do the tattoos that, if our young people have tattoos, what do they mean to them and why do they have them? Why do they, what are the stories they have? And that's the beauty of tattoos is they often have stories. So I met someone a while ago who had some tattoos, and they were talking about how the tattoos related to various people who'd been important to them, some of whom had died, and so these were memorials to those people that they carried around with them. And so this thing that we grew up going, oh no, easy. Motorbike people with their tattoos, I don't know. Good people don't have tattoos. They're actually quite different in the culture now. Probably Gen Y below have this different way of looking at it, and it talks to who they are. So if we want to understand something about culture, if we want to do the ethnography, we pick our area that we're going to study. We work out, what do we understand from who we are? What's our starting point? Do some broad research. We narrow it down and do some research with the local groups, talk to some people, explore, and then we work out what we now know. And so we know, tattoos are a part of self-expression, a part of way of saying this is who I am, a part of telling story and identity. And not just an identity of a rebel, but an identity of, this is who's important to me, or this is markers in my life, or whatever. Pamela then goes on to reflect that some of the skills that we need in doing this work. And here's where the memory's going to get a little phasey. But one of the areas is starting to be able to see the, I'm going to use the wrong words, but the different in the everyday. So she uses the example of driving the same way to church every day and often a couple of times a day. And suddenly she's driving down the road and she notices this house. And she's, wow, I just haven't noticed that house before. And that sense of how do we, as we embed ourselves in a culture, as we get to know and spend time with young people, how are we being aware of, well, where are those differences? Where are those things we go, oh, that's odd. Why do you do that? It's that, oh, here we go, get all theological for you. It's those questions that the Pharisees keep asking Jesus. You know, Jesus, oh, you're one of us, you're one of us. Hang on. Your disciples, they're picking grain on the Sabbath. Why are they doing that? That's odd. That's different to our culture. Explain that one to us. Or, hey, Jesus, you're cool. You're one of us. You're one of us. Oh, hang on. Your disciples didn't wash their hands before eating. Now, that's part of our culture. Can you explain that one to us? So you can see this has been happening for a long, long time. This isn't something radical and new. Oh, we've got to understand culture. Do you suspect I might be getting overtired again? I don't know. Just wait till next week after Brigades Camp. It could be hilarious. Luckily, I've talked them out of having me doing the evening service this Sunday. Originally, I was down for the evening service. I went, that's probably not a good idea on less sleep than normal. Because as you've noticed, when Richard has less sleep, he gets all chitty-chatty and silly and off track. So, one of the skills we need as we're doing ethnography is to look at what is the odd in the everyday. What are the things that stand out to us in the culture? What are the things that, make us, oh, that's surprising. And then the flip side of that is finding the familiar in the different. And so often we might look at another culture and we go, well, that's just weird. They just do all these strange things that are so different to us. And yet, if we stop and dig down, we'll start to see things that are familiar. And so that's the challenge of dealing with any group. We talk about big different cultural groups like Muslims. Oh, they're so different to us. But if you dig down, there's many things that there are similarities. It's not to say we all believe the same thing or anything like that, but human beings are human beings, and we do similar things. And so we can look at a culture and go, well, where are actually a commonality? Where are the things that we hold similar? And these can be ways that we can start to interact. Because, hey, you're like me, and we have a starting point that we can start a conversation. Yes, it's one of those challenges that maybe we as the church need to do more often. We're very good at seeing how churches are different to us. So we look at other denominations, other churches, and we go, oh, they're different to us. They're not like us. They don't do this. And yet, when you go down to it, 95% of the stuff we'll agree on. 5-10% maybe will have different. And they're the things that keep us apart. And so, again, with culture, how are we looking for where in the midst of this difference are the things that are similar? That we can start to, I can understand that because that's similar to me. I can hang my hat on that because I get it. I view the world in that way as well. And this is where my memory of what I recapped today runs out. And I have a feeling that's sort of where we were going to get to anyway, even if I had my book with me. So that sense of, we come to look at culture, particularly for us youth culture, but it can be any culture. It might be that you go to Mount Gravatt and you want to understand the culture at Yeronga. Or you might want to understand the culture at... There's all these ideas running through my head, but they sound silly. But anyway, you might go, I want to understand what culture at Mount Gravatt Public School. Or I want to understand the culture at Girls Brigade or Boys Brigade. Or I want to understand the culture of young people. Or I want to understand the culture of 70-year-olds. Or whatever. You go, well, what do I want to understand? Probably too big to go, I want to understand everything, but what's my area I'm going to work on today? What's my bit I'm going to understand this week or this month? Then work out, what do we believe? What do I believe about that issue? What is the broader sweep in that culture? What are the local things? What do I now know? How do I see what is the difference in the path that I'm walking along? As I'm walking with young people, where are the things that stand out to me? Go, oh, that's new. That's different. That's different. What are the things where I go, that's similar. That's similar. That's similar. And drawing all those together in our understanding. So there you go. Let's have a quick one today. Quick is always good, hey? It's like a short meeting's a good meeting. So thank you for joining with me again. Kylie's won the prize. It's Apollo 13. I was thinking today, maybe I should just do 1 week where I see how many movie quotes I can sneak in without pointing out that they're movie quotes, and you've got to get them. I don't know. We'll see. Next week's probably not the time to be doing that. But hopefully helpful. We're trying to understand young people. And we need to learn some skills to do that, which will be, again, like most things with ministry with young people, it applies to everywhere. Which is why, is that a training thing a couple of weeks ago, might have complained about or commented to you last week. But a number of things they said, it's like, well, yeah, we got that with ministry with young people yonks ago. You know, oh, we don't just count bums on seats. You know, we count development in faith. Yep, yes, we do. Well done. Can show you books from probably the early thousands with that in it, possibly from the 90s. There was something else that they talked about too that I thought, yep, youth ministry have plugged that one too. So when we're talking about this stuff, and anything we talk here, it's not always just about ministry with young people. This stuff helps us to understand any culture that we're trying to dig into. Just as the 8 pillars, which I'm starting to photocopy or start seeing going up all over the place, they're helpful for any person in their Christian walk, not just with young people. I'm going to shut up. We're going to finish early. Thank you for joining us. Continue to explore the culture around you, whatever culture you're trying to understand, even if it's your own culture. You know, what is it that, you know, people my age in this place do? It can be wonderful to work out, what is my culture? To look at church and go, what is the culture that is part of Mount Gravatt evening service or Mount Gravatt service or Tarragindi service? What is our culture? Sometimes we go, oh, is that our culture? I don't know if I want that culture. And so, yeah, how do we explore? Explore your own culture, explore other cultures. Be starting to ask those questions. Have a good week. If I don't see you during the week or over the weekend, I will see you again next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, everybody.